What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. So if it's your first time coming to hang out, let me quick tell you what's going to go on so we can all be on the same page for the episode. The name Buds, Bros, and Superheroes is actually exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to have a Buds section in which travelers of the green all around the world can come together. We're going to be talking about products, different things like that. In the Bros section, we're going to be hanging out and getting to know one another a little bit better. It's our first time having this guest co-host, so that's always a fun thing. Finally, in the Superheroes, we're going to take a really deep dive, guys. Like, this is going to be a right turn that I'm personally excited for. Those who have been following the show for a while, like, we usually pick a movie or something like that, and when we were talking about it, you were like, I'm sure we'll find something to talk about. And what you brought up is like, oh, it's going to be awesome. We're going to be talking about role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons is going to be basically it. Like I said, my name is Nick James. Today we have a first-time guest, James. Please say hello, and thanks so much for coming to hang out today.
Hello, yeah, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're super chill. I'm, for some reason, super nervous, and all of a sudden you're like, we got this, and I was like, we do got this.
Yeah, we got it, dude.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So if all this sounds good to everybody out there, the way we get this show started is by entering into the Bud section. So in the Bud section, like I was saying, Travelers of the Green, I myself has recently entered the medical marijuana field. You, sir, have been in this field for some time. So can we start there, please, of talking about you of Traveling the Green and how that's been going here for you?
Yeah, I mean, as a patient, I've been here since 2019. So I've definitely been in the program for a little while. And then I started working in dispensaries in January 2020. So I've been in the field working for a while too.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I also have a lot of these, but like, what are some of your favorite things of starting into this and being, what do you like about your job, kind of?
I really like to be in like a customer facing position. So getting to build, I think, like the long-term relationships with kind of the return patients, people that I'm seeing all the time, and like seeing the ways that their lives might change and seeing the products they might start to like, and kind of getting to know them just through that. You get a pretty good sense for people that way. And I think that's like the most enjoyable part.
I would have to agree. And sometimes it happens. I would find when I'm getting busy, maybe not flustered is the best word, but of just like in a go kind of thing. Never that I'm rushing somebody, but if a lot of people have express orders and there is a line, I do find a sense of, hi, would you like to change anything?
Yeah.
And the second I get the no, then I'm like, let's go, but I do like to offer the, would you like to? But the second it's not, no, it's let's get you the heck out of this door, please.
There's a huge line and we're closing in 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that happens often. And during that, sometimes you could just get a little tunnel visioned. And I did that the other day where I walked out to give somebody at the very end of the counter. I said, all right, thanks so much. Have a great day. And they went, all right, Nick, you too. And I was like, oh, dude, like, thanks, man. Like, so I kind of missed that whole thing of like, you know what I mean? So I like what you were talking about with the customer and building that relationship and almost feeling bad. Like, oh man, I'm going to have to definitely give him a what's up a little bit better. But
even knowing that like he'll be back and you can kind of continue that relationship then, you know what I mean?
Yes. I was very happy to see that.
I think the sweet spot too is like, for me, when we get into these periods like rushes during like peak hours, if you can kind of do both, like you get into that flow state where you're getting people in, out, but also still maintaining like that like personal relationship, but knowing that like you're keeping it pretty brief and pretty short, but it still feels personable. That's like a really nice, kind of middle ground to be at.
And a very zen place too, it's a wonderful high in and of its own when like, oh man, I'm performing and I really do think I'm doing it well. I'm keeping it speedy, but also like if you need something, we could slow down. What do you need?
Yeah.
And I also do like when that happens sometimes. Like some people get a little like, ugh. But if somebody comes in and their first time and they're like, hey, I really need help. It's like, got you.
Yeah,
what's up?
Exactly.
And I kind of enjoy that pace of it as well. So no matter where you're going with it, I found that, yes, that customer is a great part of it. And I like that. I also like getting to know a lot of product better.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
you must know a lot of product. And when I have people on who know a lot of product, I kind of like to do a what's your favorite stuff kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, so like from a personal standpoint, if we're doing like what are my repeat purchases? What are my like, kind of like top products that I enjoy personally? I find that there's honestly a lot of the ratio products on there. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get into the program, like in the first place. Before I had a sense of like what it would actually be like, I was like, oh, I can just buy weed in the street. Who cares? But for me, I was finding like, I really think I need like some stuff that is more controlled and has like a better sense of like, oh, I can use this throughout the day and find it, it works really well. So as far as like my favorite strain goes, I love the Harlequin from Cresco. I love the Lemon G from Terrapin, the Blue Dream from Rhythm. And those are the strains that I consider like to actually be like for me, but like medicinal. And then as far as just more stuff I enjoy goes, I'm a big fan of any of the gelato, cookies, kind of strains like that for my indicas, like more of the mellow hybrids. And then if I'm going to mess with the sativa, I tend to lean toward some of the like citrusy stuff. Maybe like a lemon tree, even like a Sojay Haze or a citrus daydream, stuff like that. Typically I like that like terpinolini kind of experience, once in a while.
I did enjoy the Citrus Daydream. Cresco made a batch pretty recently that I picked up that was really awesome. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's testing at 30%. I was like, yeah, but did you see all the terps in it as well? Like, look at all of that we were just saying. Like, that's what's up. And it just tasted amazing. And it really came through with that. And sativa wise of like, I don't know why it didn't make me as quote unquote nail driving as I sometimes get that I was telling you about. But I did feel really just uppity, maybe more giggly. Like I want to sit and giggle, but like not sit and sleep almost. But I was pretty mellowed, but
I found it like super true to the name, like Daydream. It felt like very spacey to me, but like in a good way, like a very pleasant kind of way. Last time I had some of that, I was playing music and it felt like a perfect strain for that experience. So it's like a real creative, like head in the clouds. I'm locking into a flow state, just playing drums right now and just grooving on it.
Awesome. Yeah. And then the Harlequin you brought up too.
Yeah.
We had to try that, but obviously I like the name for the comic book reference. Yeah. Did you see that? I think it was Grassroots Farmer X. I don't know. Somebody made a tincture called like the Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah, it's an RSO. Yeah.
It's an RSO. Thank you. Well, it's Harlequin and like Joker something, right?
Maybe Sour Joker.
Something like that.
That would make sense. I don't know if that's true. But
it would make sense. Like it's something with Joker in the name. And I was like, oh, these clever fucks.
They're really funny with the names, man. Farmer X in particular.
How do people get away with that? So one of the ones that we were bringing up the other day, I think it was actually with Drew, was Terrapin and Star Wars.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's fucking rampant. It's pretty freaking crazy. We were smoking Jawa cake.
Yeah.
But they also have Princess Leia. They have
super trademarked words.
Yeah, Rando Calrissian. So I don't know how that goes. I wonder, like, because Star Wars too.
I mean, it's Disney, man. They'll come after you for anything.
That's what I mean. That's exactly where I was going. Like, how are they getting? Like, somebody would have slapped them by now.
I imagine that honestly, the fact that it is such a new industry, and to some people from the outside, it could look a little bit like not dangerous, but it's an illicit activity. I'm putting that in air quotes, but for a lot of people, you know what I mean. In a lot of states, it's still illegal. Maybe seen as like they probably don't have their eyes on it. Is what I'm saying. If it was just like a regular retail kind of store, or if every single state in the country was legalized and like full adult use, maybe more eyes would be on it. But I think it's just like the nature of the program, you can kind of slide it under the rug, or they just don't care and are just blatantly doing like, whatever. What's the worst that could happen?
Nothing's happened yet. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what is the worst that can happen? Because I can see how they get away with it with the Harlequin, because it is like Harlequin, not Harley Quinn.
Exactly.
And a Joker. There are many Jokers in cards, or a court jester and shit like that. But when you go Princess Leia, like that's a pretty like, holy shit, dude. Like, try something. Like Space Buns is kind of like, oh, I get where you're going with her hairstyle and haha. Like that's so much, but like literally have a Princess Leia.
Yeah, or
on
like
the
Jawa cake, man. It's like Star Wars made that word up. Like that's George Lucas trademark,
Absolutely. It's weird. So one of the things that I actually like that you brought up, I saw on your Instagram, was the hot takes.
Yeah.
Going back to that now, I remember that after you said something earlier. I was like, oh, okay. So that would be kind of be fun, because one of the hot takes that we even kind of touched upon here was like THC hunters and shit like that. And people who will specifically stop in. You're like, I've never seen you. And they're like, no, I drove 45 minutes for this. And you're like, interesting.
Yeah.
Why? And they're like, 30%, bro. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
How many times do you get calls in about like, do you have anything higher than?
Every day, man, I think it happens. And it's like, it's always some like outstanding number. Like if you come in and you're like, hey, you have anything like 22%? I'm like, oh, definitely. Certainly I can help you out. But when you call and you're like, this other dispensary's got this weed at 35%. Do you have that? I'm like, no. I'm sorry. And it's just like, it's so rare to find something like that. So that, I don't know. I think people put way too much focus on it. And I'm sure, I mean, you talk about that a lot on this podcast too. It's just like, I've had 18% flour that hits way harder. I've had a 30% flour that's like unenjoyable. It's definitely not the end all be all.
One of the things that we could talk about here, and kind of, it's a little bit of behind the scenes of what we do. I've never said where I work specifically, but something that we do is called the THC, what's the word? Not extraction, but the conversion.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I would love to talk to you about that and hopefully get some education out there. I want to educate PA listeners on a few things in this section while we can, because the phone call thing also reminded me, I would love to take a tally. How many tallies do you get a day of, hey, can I come in there if I don't have a card?
Oh my God. Can my sister come in with me? Do you accept Massachusetts medical cards? No. Do you
don't. Canadian I got the other day. Do you accept the Canadian ones? And I was like, no, it's got to be Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So that's lesson number 1 that we're going to have inside this section of, if you want to buy in Pennsylvania, you have to have a PA. Oh, and it's also got to be, what's the word? Not expired? What's the word of not expired?
Just like a current license, right?
Current, yes. Yep. It's got to be a current one.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know to follow the dates, that it can expire on like 3 different levels, right?
Oh, you mean for the medical card?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure what they do is they will set your like actual expiration date for when you get certified. So like if I got certified on the 1st of the month, for instance, and my card came in on the 10th, a year later, my stuff's going to be up for expiration on the 1st, unless I pay the $50 to let the state know, like, I definitely want to keep doing this, and they'll keep it on for the next 2 weeks or whatever the situation might be. And it's frustrating because I don't think they don't make it super clear. You know what I mean? So if you wanted to go buy some nice product and you find out that your card expires, even though it says you got 2 more weeks, like, I get why you'd be mad, but that's why we should tell people, I guess.
That's what I'm definitely trying to do here, because that's another one that's just so hard to explain.
Yeah.
And they're like, isn't that bullshit? And like,
yeah,
you need to be professional, but at the same time, they're like, yes, sir. Or ma'am.
It's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. And I'm sorry for this bullshittery, but the good thing about it is that you could sit down, electronically send somebody $50 and be back here in 10 minutes and you're good. Like it's $50 right now that's stopping you between these doors.
Yep.
And they were like, really? I'm like, yeah, go sit down, follow the links in your email, sit down, use it, and like, just go ahead. And that does get sorted up pretty quickly.
Yeah. It should be a nice lesson in procrastination, though. Like, don't put it off, which is funny to tell to, not to fit into the stereotype or anything, but stoners are kind of known for, procrastinating. Myself, anyway. I don't know. I don't speak for every stoner,
Yeah. But no, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I always think about it. I was in California. My dad took me after I graduated college, and we went on a weed tour.
Nice.
And we got on it late. So I was texting the guy like, we just thought to do it. You have one now. Like, this is perfect. Can we still make it? Even though we're like, you're supposed to leave in 5 minutes and it's going to take us 20.
Right.
And he typed back. It was the first thing that he typed back. He's like, trying to wrangle a bunch of stoners together is like trying to get a bunch of methed up cats in one room.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Just come when you get here.
Exactly.
So that's what I thought of the first thing when you're like, I'm not trying to stereotype us, but I mean, sometimes when it's true, it's true. Yes.
Yeah.
If we will late to the last minute of like, I'll do that. Sorry. The next thing that I wanted to talk about that we kind of hinted at was the conversion and going through that, dude. And that's one of the things with people who don't do it. So first and foremost, it's a THC versus a THCA. Mm-hmm. So the THCA is a different type of acid, if I'm not mistaken, that's also found on it more so than in it or with it, that takes not combustion, but normally that's what happens. Vaporization
when
you
heat it
way.
up, yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you. Heat. That
Whether
was
you're
the word that I was
baking
trying
it
to
or
go.
lighting it on fire. Not that anybody in the program would ever light anything on fire.
We would never do
what I
that
mean?
in a non-combustion
Exactly.
approved place. But if it were to happen, like it's that is the catalyst that turns it into THC.
Yep.
And during that catalyst, a little bit of shit gets fucked up. It just poofs away, right? So we take that number and we times it by 0.877, which would mean 0.33 or 0.133 is then that's what the difference is of getting burned up. That's why we times it and add it to the THC that was going to get it in you anyway. Mm-hmm. So that means if we get something with like 30 on the label,
maybe you're looking at closer to like 27. Yeah.
And automatically 3% to people means a lot. So when they see on the menu 27 and then we show them, they go, this shit says 30.
Yep.
I'll take it. Like they're happy at first, but they're like, why are you trying to play it? And it's like, what we do here is, and you tell them, which is fine because like we talked about earlier, I'm all about education. I'll spend as much time. But it's the same people who you end up having to tell of like, we did this like 2 weeks ago, dude. Like, come on. Like, why do you all do that? I don't know. That's what
I just
we do.
work here, man. I don't know.
How many times a fucking week could you I just work here. I don't make the rules.
And it's really frustrating because it feels like every dispensary can't get on the same page, right? Because when I worked at the place where you work, we did the conversion there. And at my current job, it gets pulled automatically from inventory and it gets uploaded to the website, which is crazy technology that I don't pretend to understand, but it gets a lot of stuff wrong. And so it straight up just adds the THC and the THCA together because I guess it just pulls the numbers from inventory and is like, sure, this is right. And so we're technically like, it's not the quote unquote correct percentage. And when I worked where you work, we had it all the time where it's like if we both stores got on the same batch of a product, it's like, well, that other dispensary has it at 28. Why is yours 25? It's like, well, because, and then you do the whole spiel, you know?
Yeah, the whole spiel. So continuing down that path of how many whole spiels do you have of getting the dates correct? You need the PA card, getting the THC correct, any other kind of, let's set some first time goers. That's maybe how we should have started this. What other first time goer information would you give?
I think it's important to know that there is a certain etiquette to coming into a dispensary. I think, it's a medical program. Sometimes it can feel on a really busy day with, a certain kind of clientele, like an adult use program. You know what I mean? People are chasing THC. They just want the coolest flower, whatever the situation might be. But I've definitely had people come in and, yo, what kind of weed you got? And just be very like, the word's not aggressive, but you're not being very discreet about the situation. And I think that's fine. Like, I'm never here to judge anybody, but when you're in an environment like this, like if it's a medical program, there's just a little bit of etiquette, and that's fine if you don't know it. But to me, it's frustrating. It feels like nobody goes over that with anybody. Like, I can tell personally, like, I don't know if this is your experience where you work. A lot of these people get medical cards from, places that are, that's going to sound very cynical, so please forgive me, but, card mills. You know what I mean? Where they're kind of just pumping out cards. And that's not to say that these people don't have like legitimate medical conditions, but the doctors that they're going to maybe are not going over how the program works with them in as much detail as they should be. Do you know what I mean? And then so it's left up to the people that work at the dispensaries, which granted that's our jobs, but it's just like, man, is nobody telling anybody how this stuff works? You know what I mean?
It would be nice. There is more finesse is the word that I eventually came up with. There's got to be more finesse to it, because when that happens, it's proving people right in some cases.
Correct.
Who are like, oh, they're just going there to get high, right? It's like, unfortunately, like we just talked about, cynically, yes, there are going to be some people who can go to a card mill, who can work through the system to just quote unquote chase THC. However, like, it's not worth the people who really need it as well. Like, I feel fine if, like, for every person that we talked about earlier who I have to stop and help and who came back in and was like, oh, that really helped. Where else can we go from now? And that's personally why I also call it traveling the green.
Yeah, because it's a whole
It's
experience.
never done. You're never just, not to personally then be cynical or shit on people on meds. It's not just like, dunk, here.
Oh, yeah. I want to make it clear. I do not feel that way at all, man. I love my job. I love working in the industry. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's 180 degrees from what I just brought up. And I like the travel. I like that it's in my hands.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I brought up as well. Like, take one of these every day. Why? I don't feel that way in this program. I take what I feel I need when I need it. And the other traveling that I've learned that I like to do is tinctures.
Oh, yeah.
I've really started fucking with tinctures, and they are super nice. Anybody who's hesitant or I don't know if it's going to be, go ahead and just try it.
Yeah.
I would really honestly say try it. And the other great thing too is there's not even really horrible ones so far. So some people would stay away. I hate to shit talk them 2 weeks in a row, but Alira. But their tinctures are actually super
nice, man.
duper
That's
nice,
like one of the first, when I first got on the program, I bought their Hope tincture over and over and over. And that's one thing I'll say, man, is like, you know, if you are somebody who got into the program because you have anxiety, you have, you know, whatever kind of situation you got going on, and you're just buying flower or vape carts, you got a whole lot of other stuff in that menu you can try, man. You might like it a lot more. You know, like I find for me, like I enjoy flower, I enjoy vape carts, with the exception of like some of the one-to-one stuff. They never feel like stuff that I personally can just like take in the morning and just go about my day. Like I'm more of a nightcap kind of person when it comes to like more THC dominant stuff. So if I'm taking just a little bit of like a tincture in the morning, like 10 milligrams or less, 5 milligrams, get some CBD in there, it's like everything gets toned down a little bit, feels nice and muted. And it's like, oh, this actually feels like a medicinal product to me right now. And isn't it crazy that I can walk into a store and buy a 5 milligram dropper of THC instead of like going to a sketchy back alley and buying weed from somebody that I don't even know. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like a way better deal. That's what made me want to get into the program in the first place.
Or an Aleve or an Advil or anything that.
Definitely.
You know, when I read the sides of it, I especially do that. One of my favorite things is trying a few. So you brought up Hope. You just said?
The Hope tincture.
I like their Soothe. Their Soothe is really nice. I don't know confirmed if I have IBS. I'm also a trash stomach. Like I don't eat well, so I can't really say the machine's not working well when I don't fuel it right.
Sure.
I'm gonna, for my own sake, right in the middle. Anyway, it's nice. Yeah. It's really nice. Where I might have, I think also too, just to continue, like I just drink a shit ton of coffee.
Yeah.
And I won't eat anything, and I'm like, why does my tummy hurt so much? Why is it burning?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll take a little bit of this, and it's just super nice. And then from there, I traveled a little bit into more THC stuff, especially then to bring up another good buy, in my opinion, that might not always translate is G-Leaf.
Oh, yeah.
Their tinctures are also really nice, where sometimes I find their other products, I definitely don't like their carts, their live resin stuff's okay. Yeah.
They're an okay company. The tinctures, though, I know when I was
tinctures are great.
When I was at the place that you work at now, we sold a lot of them because they have. The only downside to the tinctures is I feel like most of them are made for people that have or want a lower tolerance to THC. You know, like 5-10 milligrams a serving, and a lot of the ones that G-Leaf makes I know are way up there. So they're great choices for people that either like want that stronger psychoactive kind of effect or just have a really high tolerance but don't want to be ripping carts all day, you know?
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah. Like, I'll take a large dose, which is still only a half a dropper.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as much as a full, but it's still, like you're saying, because the dosage is so high, still a half of this is still pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful to come home to, and it slips under, and you sit down. If your feet were hurting, because we do a lot of standing, we do a lot of walking and bending and kneeling and shit like that.
Lifting.
Lots of lifting as well. So, like, I just literally can melt and not be so psychoactive sometimes of just like, oh, I feel genuinely relaxed right now. Of just like, this is great.
And I like the slow creep of edibles and tinctures and capsules and stuff like that. Like, sometimes it's nice to, you know, hit something and it literally hits you right in the face a couple seconds later. But when you're just like chilling, playing a video game, and it just kind of slowly creeps up on you, and then you look around, you're like, oh, I feel amazing right now. Sometimes that's nicer, you know?
Agreed. Yeah. Yes. When you're like, oh, yes, that happened. Okay, great.
This is very pleasant.
Because sometimes you forget or you get caught up in whatever you like. A video game is perfect, or a series or a show, whatever you're doing. You're just like, oh, yeah, we were watching this. Great. Like, who's getting kicked out this week? And then all of a sudden you're on the next episode and you're like, whoa, that's right. Whoa. Yes, exactly. That happened. Great. This is going great right now.
Yeah. And I feel like those kind of things come in different, at least with like edibles, at least, they come in different waves. You know, the first wave hits you, then later on it's like, oh, this is still releasing into my body, huh? Very cool. Yeah.
And the final thing that I was also going to bring up about talking with this other person is edibles. Have you ever do you make your own with like RSOs, and what's your experience with that? I have in the past, but
I don't do it too often, to be honest with you.
I do not either. No, I found that that's one of the things of, I don't really enjoy ingesting it like that. I find like a tincture somehow is different than an RSO in that way, or even a delicious edible is what I call them, compared to like an RSO cap or something like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think just to kind of give myself away here, man, it's like maybe I just can't trust myself in front of a batch of, you know, like medicated brownies, because I have a serious sweet tooth, and I know that I'll literally bite off more than I can chew, and then it'll be a big experience.
Yeah.
So I find if I want to take RSO, man, it's just like, well, I could bake with it and wait for my oven to preheat, or I can just get a scoop of peanut butter right now and just go to town. And sometimes you just want the easier option, you know?
That's funny. Peanut butter.
Oh, yeah, dude. Well, I feel like you want something fat soluble, right? Like something fatty to help the THC absorb. So why not just go for peanut butter right out the jar, you know?
That's another pro tip right there that we were adding. And then finally, with the etiquette, we were talking finesse. Is there any other final first-time patient thing that you'd want to say? Because I feel like this has been great.
Yeah.
You have been just a wealth. Thank you.
Let me think over that for a second. I would definitely say, like, don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. I remember, like, when I went into the dispensary for the first time, I was pretty nervous. And, like, I don't know if you had that experience. I feel like I'm so used to it now, but a lot of the people I see that are first time patients, some of them are super naive to cannabis in general. Some of them are not naive to cannabis, but like feel kind of sketched about like, oh, am I still doing something wrong here? Like, so don't be afraid to ask questions. Knowledge is power, right? And you want to be an informed person. You want to be an informed consumer. Because the program is so new and there's so much trial and error, you do want to be as informed as you can be and kind of armed with as much knowledge as you can get to make the best decisions for yourself. And don't be afraid to try, like we were talking about, tinctures and the one-to-one stuff, because they're probably a lot better than you think they are. And, yeah.
And also to kind of add on to that, because that was perfect, don't be afraid to quote unquote narc yourself out.
Oh, yeah.
I can't stand when I'm trying to get with somebody and trying to find out where on the map you are. I always feel like it's like a teacher at the beginning of the year. Like, I'm going to give you a test. It doesn't count for anything. Yep. I just need to know where you are.
Where's
please.
Your progress? Yep.
So I'll say to them, do you have any prior use? And they just told me it's their first time in a dispensary.
Yeah.
So that automatically, to anybody, like it automatically means, have you bought weed illegally before, off the streets, however you want to say it, and that would be a confession.
Yeah,
you're not confessing to me. We're not behind it. It's nothing like that.
Yeah,
you can say that you're not quote unquote narking yourself out. I'm not here to judge, but once again, it would be great because if you're like, oh, I've never really tried it, I'm going to be like, shit, like we got to start slow with you then. Meanwhile, he is someone who might really want to know what's in his medicine, who's trying to come into this program and trying to like, I am a little bit further than I want to. I smoke a lot of street weed now and it's not doing anything. Yeah. That would be a much better answer of like, all right, I could start you somewhere in between then.
Yeah, because it's like clearly you're here for a reason. You wanted to go to medical marijuana for a reason. So it's like, I'm just going to make an assumption that you might have tried it before. You don't have to lie. Like, I'm not going to, no one's going to bust in here and arrest you. But I also understand that anxiety because I definitely felt the same way. Like I felt early on like I had to almost justify my condition to them. Be like, oh, I want this flower. Like, oh yeah, I'll go grab it for him. Like, yeah, it really helps my anxiety. And they're just like, okay, I'm going to go get it for you.
I really need to sleep, so I need like something like...
It's just like, no, man, it's cool. And I think doing that kind of stuff is going to help continue to destigmatize it, which I think ultimately is like the most important thing. Even for us, man, like... I feel weird telling my family about my job sometimes, even though it's fully, totally like acceptable and I make pretty good money and have like health insurance and all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but still there's that part of me that was conditioned from the propaganda, against the war on drugs to just be like, no, this is bad. So just don't worry about that. Ask questions and don't be afraid to narc on yourself. Yeah.
Dude, with that, you don't even know about the awesome segue that we're going to do with that into the bro section of explaining to your family and all that. It's going to be perfect. Before we get into that, we are going to wrap up into this bud section that we always do of like, do you have any comments? What's your guys' etiquette to any first-time patients? Leaving comments down below. Let us know. Or, we usually ask too, what products are you smoking on or anything like that? We talked about a lot of great ones. Leave the comments, send the tweets. Right on the walls. Yeah. There's still a lot of stuff going on the internet, I believe.
I think so.
Any of that would be great. But we are going to close on out of that bud section and enter into the bros section. So to jump right into this about what I was talking about, I attended a wedding. So at the very top of this, I don't know if I say their names. I love them. They love me. They know who they are if they're listening. But you guys are great. It was a beautiful wedding. But just want to say once again, congratulations. Love you guys. Thanks for letting me do that really quick. But I told you, you kind of came in and we were talking about, hey, how's it going? What are you guys doing today? And when I told you I had to go all the way to New Jersey for it. And you said something interesting to me that I kind of want to enter into this bros about. It's going to be almost a wedding field bros, but you said something like, oh, I'm due for a wedding.
Yeah, I feel that way, man.
How do you, what do you love about weddings now? What are you due for? What do you expect out of a wedding? It's going to be fun because I was just at one, so I feel pretty good at
I feel primed to talk about it.
Correct. Yeah. No, I was a little intimidated in the bud section of oh, this guy knows a lot and I want to ask good questions. But now I'm just I was at a wedding, bro. I got this.
You're the expert now. Yeah. I don't know, man. Honestly, I'm kind of a sucker for a big display like that, man. Nothing is cooler to me than two people who are they love each other so much that they're just let's throw a party about it. You know what I mean? And in the past, the weddings I've gone to have been family members that I like, or my partner's family members, stuff like that. But I'm at the age now where most of my friends are kind of coupled off, and it's just a matter who's gonna get married first and who's gonna throw the best party. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, I think, what I'm really looking forward to is just my friends moving on and myself moving on to these next chapters where we can all just celebrate each other and our love together. You know what I mean? Plus a free bar is always cool too.
I definitely saw a lot of that. So this was my cousin, though we are just absolutely great friends and friends with her other cousins as well. And well, no, they're her siblings. They're my cousins. Friends with them as well. Yeah. So it's great getting together and seeing all of them. We're of a similar age that it does kind of work into that. And that's how the vibe was going last night. But in terms of just spectacular, they did the whole thing at the church.
Yeah.
One of the things I was explaining to my wife who's been there is I've been to this church 8 billion times over their lives.
Right.
So I think I've seen all the milestones of they were raised Catholic, of communion, and then confirmation is another one.
Yeah.
And then some of them have kids and they were baptized after I saw them wedding there, the brothers and that was a really cool part about this chapter again, of just being oh shit, we're here again. This is fucking crazy.
All the crazy memories, just to kind of have it go full circle like that.
Because it reminds me of the church in a sense of that. And just being old timey of no, that's the church. We keep going that's their church at least that.
Yeah.
It's the one and only one, even though I'm sure if we threw a fucking rock from that church, we could hit another church really easily. But it just seems old fashioned-y, almost like a set piece of my own life movie of just we're fucking here again, guys. And now look, we're all a little bit older and you've got a baby, you've got 2 babies. What the fuck is
crazy?
And talking about, like you were saying, of just, isn't this great? They fucking really like each other and shit.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. I don't know. It must be weird for you too, anticipating those 2 people that got married. It's they're probably going to have kids soon. And, I don't know. Maybe that's a part about getting older that I'm just starting to kind of feel, I don't know, really interested about. It's the weird passing of time and milestones that kind of recur like that,
And you always saw it kind of as a kid and almost faced it against your parents. But the internet has made just a funny fucking joke about it all. It's just me as a kid, I'm not even going to do a good meme off the top of my head. But anyway, it's about how when you become, quote unquote, an adult, you're isn't this nice carpeting? And you as a kid, the kid version in you was did you really just ask about the fucking carpet? You know what I mean? But you really do appreciate it. And you're this crown molding, this came out really good. You know what I mean? Shit like that about adulting that you're not, it sounds like bullshit, but you're really I like that. I'm going to do that shit at my house. You know what I mean? Shit
it's
that.
Stuff you can put a lot of thought and effort to, but 14-year-old me would think that 28-year-old me was so boring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Especially about cars too. And how fast it go versus oh great, how many people you fit in there?
Yeah.
Oh, this has got a lot of space. I bet you could fit 2-3 grocery orders in this compared to just how many girls you fit back there or some shit like that.
If I buy a kayak, is it going to fit in here?
Can we take this camping? Will it tow me and my kids up the hill? That shit's funny.
Yeah, and I don't know, man.
It is, though, and it is interesting. And you thought that you weren't going to be that adult, but you realize being that adult is actually what you kind of like about yourself a little bit, too. Just what are you guys doing today? I think we're going to go pick out some new wallpaper. No, nobody wallpapers. New painters, some shit like that. I don't know. Because then it becomes about you and your space. And I don't know. As kids, you just didn't realize it. It's this is my house because it's their house, I don't know.
And think about it too.
Time passing is weird.
It is very weird, man. I'm just going through that right now because I'm at the point in my life where a lot of these albums, CDs and stuff that were so important to my adolescence are starting to hit their 10-year anniversaries, and bands are starting to do tours to celebrate that. And it's just so bizarre being how did that many years go by already? And I think that's just maybe one thing about like your late 20s, that it's like the first time you experience that big of a jump in time that it's just totally mind blowing.
That's why I think they do 10-year reunions where you're like, fuck, I haven't seen you fuckers in 10 years. Like sometimes some people don't. Some people do, but like for me, I don't know if they did it. I don't know if that happens, whatever. But like for me personally, it'd be like, I have not seen a fucking one of you in 10 years. Like that's crazy.
A full decade, man. Yeah.
A full decade. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But then back to, we talked about a wedding almost in 2 parts, and we hit on like, yay, they loved each other. Motherfuckers threw a party, dude. Yeah. It was really just a great time. So from the set of the church I was talking about, you had to drive, I don't know, like 30 minutes to the hotel, which of course, like a lot of weddings, like you had a block. So shit was already set up.
Yeah.
Checking in was super easy. God loved the internet of like,
super simple.
Fucking here and shit. Go and drop your shit off. You have an hour to hang out and then drive to the party, which is a minute away. Now you're like, oh man, driving. Sometimes that doesn't mix with alcohol. No, all the time it doesn't mix with alcohol. But what am I going to do? They had a shuttle bus for those who drank. Perfect. I personally do not imbibe anymore. So that was not a thing for us. But I was like, And to be honest, at the end of the day, if the shuttle bus lost a tire, like y'all could have walked. It wasn't really that bad. And yesterday was quite a mild day as well. But anyway, smart as shit. Walk in the place, it's like a giant hallway, and you walk into one room and there's lights iridescently kind of going. Another room, there's like a bar, and they have their name, her new name at least, spelled out in like a neon light and shit. And then like, that was cocktail hour. There was a third room. And like cocktail hour, I don't know a lot about weddings because I don't pay attention. Right. I just kind of go like, where are we going now?
Yeah.
But like, it was cool or extra, like awesome, because there was so much food.
Yeah.
Like usually it's kind of more lighter hors d'oeuvres or stuff like that. But this is like one of 2 or 3 weddings that I could think about that was just like, we got full hot food, bro. Like we're starting this thing with food now. Food and booze. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like an invitation from the people that you love so much to be like, you know what? This is about you. I know you think it's about us, but you can ball out as much as you want right now. Yeah.
Abso-fucking. And that's how dude, that was perfect. Yeah. If they're listening, that's how you made me feel. Yeah. Absolutely. I felt exactly like that. We'll go into a little bit more, like, even though I felt like that, that's not exactly the person I portray at a wedding. So cocktail happened. Awesome. Funny story for me is like I said, I don't drink, but I was like, let me get a Roy Rogers. Do you happen to know what that is?
It's a non-alcoholic, like drink, I imagine.
Yeah. It's a cherry Coke. It's Coke with grenadine.
Oh, perfect.
So it's basically a Shirley Temple for anybody who doesn't know, but it's not Sprite
which
or
are
clear
delicious
soda.
For the record.
Abso-fucking-lutely. And normally I order them. However, I was like, I don't need the jokes tonight like I normally get. Let's get a Roy Rogers. And the guy, surprisingly, was like, all right, like immediately. And then he started to get stuff ready and held stuff over. And he's like, and stopped and he goes, I'm making you a cherry Coke, right? And I go, yes. And he goes, all right, cool. Like thinking maybe I thought a Roy Rogers was something more cool or alcoholic or something like that. And he was cool as shit. So I just kept throwing him ones every time I went up there. And like automatically on the Roy Rogers guy, if he saw me like, yeah, another one.
He knows what's up, man.
Correct.
It's awesome.
And I'm going to get $1. He knew because I just feel bad. Like one freaking lady in front of him who I thought I was one fucking person behind the bar was like, can I get 3? And then I need this. And oh, you need something too? And like, I was sitting there cracking my neck like, all right.
So can I just get my cherry Coke, lady? Like, please.
Can I just get my cherry? Thank you. Oh man, that's funny as shit. But that was a good time. We get into the main room. And the main room was just decked out. The food was great. Yeah. The music was pumping. So, like, what kind of food are you, like, if you had to have your wedding right now, what kind of food would you like to have all around?
What a question.
It is a bit loaded. Yeah, sorry, on the spot, but.
We're talking main courses? We're talking, like, appetizers?
Let's start crudité, yeah.
Crudité. You don't have to explain to me what that means.
I think I went to say hors d'oeuvres, because that's fancy, but crudité is like, that's a type of hors d'oeuvre where it's just like, vegetarian, like it's vegetables.
Oh, well, you know what, man?
Definitely
perfect transition because definitely I'm serving up some vegetables. My family's got to get their vitamin C in, got to get that fiber going. Plus, I don't eat meat, so it's gonna have to kind of be a default thing at my wedding. But probably like a lot of comfort food, man. I feel like that's what people enjoy, and so I enjoy anyway. Probably mashed potatoes and pasta. A lot of good stuff like that. Pretty carb focused, yeah.
I like both of those options.
Yeah. Maybe just one big loaf of bread for everybody to split.
It's the size of the room as well. Like when you say really big, it's
like
just everybody go up and grab some.
Those 6-foot submarines or whatever, but it's straight up just bread. Yeah.
That's fucking funny. So the music was also another big thing that was part of this. DJ they went, which I thought was great because this guy was super flawless. I don't really know anything about DJing. The most I know about it is, have you ever seen Pitch Perfect?
A long time ago, yeah.
She talks about how you want to do pretty much transitions of finding the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left and mixing it maybe to the 1 and 2 and 3 and
switch
4
between songs. Yeah.
To find that perfect where it doesn't always seem obvious. That's a good one if you ask me, where you're like, what? Oh shit, where'd that come from? But it doesn't seem like burp and start a new song almost, But this guy was good. Are you a dancer?
Am I a dancer?
Yeah, are you the guy at the wedding dancing?
I'm the guy at the wedding who will stand on the edge of the floor with the person that I'm with and kind of just like bop my head politely and, gotta have something in my hands because I don't know what to do with them when I'm dancing. You know what I'm saying?
I swear to Christ. So I'm dance. I will slow dance. I got the slow dance. I got the, let's middle school this up, left and right. And maybe if we're feeling fancy in that left and right, we can also do a 360. But no dips, please. Maybe a twirl, top notch twirl, maybe. But my wife wanted to dance. And I was like, all right, I'll stay for one. I just don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
And she just starts laughing. And then that's making me nervous because now I'm just like, what do I do? It's like wet spaghetti sometimes where it's just what do I like? Because I always go to The Hitch is what I call it, that movie with Will Smith where he's explaining to Kevin James, right step 1, left step 1, right step 1, and the hands just kind of stay here. However, I just see invisible maracas here. And I just feel uncomfortable with this. So then what? You can kind of do maybe an X. Nope, this isn't working.
Yeah.
This is definitely way too much. What do? You can't hands in your pocket.
You can't be a hands in pocket kind of person. I do feel a little upset that this isn't a video podcast because everybody was just deprived of your absolutely sick moves. But honestly, man, I think
one was just more awkward. What do you do? That would be another great thing.
I think you really got to lean into the fact that it's just going to look and be goofy and just have as much fun with it as you can. You know what I mean? I've seen people just go all out and just look really silly, straight up, but it's that they're having fun. And I don't know, maybe it's always nice to remember that probably no one's really looking at you as much as you feel like they are. Or maybe everybody is, it's definitely one or the other,
It is, because as I am the guy I was saying, and this is who I am at the wedding, where I'm sitting almost the whole time, slow dances.
Yeah.
Are fine, But I like to sit, and I definitely am number one, not on my phone. Not often. Sometimes I got to check, shit's going on. It's okay every now and then. And I was having a conversation where we were both looking something up. But I don't want to be the guy looking down the whole time.
You're not scrolling Instagram. You know what I mean?
I want the head up and I want eye contact where I can make it and just moving. I could sway. And then, like you said, if I'm doing something on the table, it's not so awkward with my hands. But I definitely don't want to be the guy looking down.
Yeah, sitting alone at a table while everybody else is dancing. Not a great look. You know what I mean?
No. So I definitely understand that I don't want to be that guy. But I also don't want to be the guy of really going at it. Because like you were saying, there aren't people, maybe you're not being looked at as much, but as the guy sitting, I am watching people.
Yeah, that's
and mostly
true.
I'm envious. There's this one guy, he fucking looked great. He had suspenders and a nice red tie, though he wore blue. He just stood out really nice. He just looked good.
Yeah, had the fashion down, for sure.
For sure. And just danced he looked like he was right in between both of just letting loose and also being somehow trained, where I was like,
yeah.
You're fucking making this hard for me, bro.
So
you
maybe
look
it's
really
it's
good.
a natural talent, you know what I mean?
I do. I often don't want to try to bring things here, but I think I'm very white.
Yeah.
Is what I think it is. I got rhythm from the feet down. That's maybe a drumming thing of 1 and 2, kind of going like that.
You a drummer?
Yeah.
Nick, I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. I play drums.
Me too.
Oh, yeah. I knew that because, you jam with Drew and he posts that shit sometimes. And I listen to those.
I literally had no idea. And that's so funny because it makes what I was going to say before, it hits even closer to home, where it's so funny that I can play drums pretty well. I can play bass pretty well. I have a good sense of rhythm, but you put me on a dance floor with nothing in my hands and it just disappears, man.
Yep.
It's so funny. It's unexplainable.
Yeah. It's almost I don't know. My dad, he's a programmer.
Yeah.
But that's not IT sometimes. You know what I mean? Where you're like, wait, you speak the same language. Why can't you do it? And it's like, it's not the same. And that's how I feel with
That's
this.
a good
Where it's
analogy.
like, how can you not? You count. And it's like, yeah, I can count 1 and 2 like I just did. You know, that's fine. But that's almost mathematic is how I drum.
Yeah.
I drum very mathematically with very little flair in it sometimes of just like, if I throw in a fill, it's a 4. It's do-do-do-do. I'll never just do just because I was there and it felt right.
Yeah,
No, I've got to put fucking 4 in there because that's what I taught was a fill.
Exactly.
That's not what dancing is. Dancing is not, you know, you have to be able to know where like, this is how I was taught to thrust your hip. But like, I personally like to throw a little ha in there. It's almost like painting where I can't paint, but I can paint by numbers. I can't like,
maybe the key is like, you have to get really good at like free form jazz drumming, and then those skills will translate to dancing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Got to break open your 1, 2, 3, 4 a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Or honestly, this is more likely. It's probably just to have something in your hands. You know what I mean?
The other. Yes,
I think that's really what it is, man. So I think like what you were saying before about like what does it look like when you dance. I think instead of the invisible maracas, you just got to get a pair and just like
actually do it.
Yeah, see what happens. You know.
I might. I'd be that guy then. It's just like, you know, they're always so like in another universe. If that did happen and an attendee at this wedding had their podcast, they'd be like, dude, I went to this wedding and there was a maraca guy and he just went the whole night. And that would have been me.
And that would have been memorable for the rest of everybody's lives, man. You would have been cemented.
I wonder though, as the maraca guy, do I still get the invite? My cousin or not? Do I still get invited? I don't know.
If your reputation precedes you, it's maybe like, oh, we don't really want that guy at our wedding. He might cause a scene.
He might, yeah. He's going to steal my thunder with his fucking maracas.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah. But all in all, the wedding was good. Once again, I can't share enough love with them or anything. Any final thoughts on weddings that you had?
If any of my friends are listening to this, you gotta do it, man. You gotta get married so I can come and hang out at your wedding. That's pretty much all I got, though.
So what if they turn the pendulum on you and they're like, why not you, sir?
That's a good question. My answer is you first. Or we'll flip a coin. You know?
Flip the coin?
Yeah, that seems like a pretty good way to determine something so important. Yeah.
That's how I determine between steak or chicken at the dinner. So yes, you're right. It's right on par with those now.
Exactly.
Get married, not get married, steak, chicken. It's almost unanimous.
The rest of my life, dinner. Yep, exactly.
Or what you could do, and listen to this motherfucking segue, you can roll like an octagon die or something like that. That's something, right?
Yeah, very smooth transition.
Thank you. Because right now, guys, we are going to exit out of this bro section and get into the superhero section where I'm going to get schooled, dude. I got some questions all about role-playing games, but almost like Dungeons and Dragons specifically.
Sure, yeah. I'm definitely down to, try to do my best to answer those questions for you.
Let's get into it. So like I said, and this is going to be super duper interesting right now of getting into something that I don't know a lot about, but I'm very interested in. And I kind of want to start this with a little bit of a cop-out on the subject matter as it comes to my mind. Because when I think about Dungeons & Dragons specifically, I actually get caught up in another fad, a more current one if you ask me, of Stranger Things. I think of Dustin and Finn Wolfhard and all those kids playing it specifically. So really quick, before we deep dive into that, do you like Stranger Things? Just learning.
I really enjoyed the first season, and I totally fell off after that. Yeah.
I would have to say, in some perspectives, I'm jealous. Like, all you have in your mind is that, like, that's all that Stranger Things is.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful fucking thing. You know, like, do you maybe have some questions or something, for me, I'd be like, oh, I have to know. Just because that's the type of personality I am. Like, it's almost like the collector in me. Like, season 1, episode 2, I need that. Season 1, episode 3, I need that.
Yep.
Like, it's more of I'm collecting rather than I need to know.
I totally understand that, like, urge for sure. I think for me, it's just like my attention falls off after a certain amount of time. So, like, I definitely get hyper fixated on stuff. So if I'd never seen the first season and it was just all available for me right now, I probably would have just like jumped on and watched the whole thing. But
good point.
I saw it, and then it was like, second season came out later. I probably watched a couple episodes of that and then just like did something else, and then my interest just totally dropped off.
Because I could do that in a season. That's definitely something where I find that maybe Netflix, a lot of people think that they've screwed us out of other television, but if television is good enough, you will make that appointment. That's what it's called.
Absolutely.
It's called appointment television for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be really strict of Wednesdays at 8. That's it, motherfucker. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas now, usually, I'm thinking of Disney. Like, oh, on Wednesday, we dropped a new Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Compared to Stranger Things, because there are times where I'm watching Stranger Things, so I was like, that episode kind of sucked. I guess I'll watch another one. Whereas, like, am I coming back next Wednesday? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. Like, this is gonna sound probably pretty pretentious, but I think like when certain things get too popular, it can, just as generic as and cliche as it sounds, it can kind of kill it sometimes, man. And I think for Stranger Things specifically, for me, it's more of like that first season before, when it just came out, it's like it felt like lightning in a bottle. It was like, whoa, this is a really cool thing that these people managed to like do, and like, who are these fucking kids that are so talented? And then when it becomes like a huge franchise, it's like 4 seasons coming, and it's just like, oh, okay. Like, the novelty of it is kind of worn off to me a little bit,
It's absolutely that.
Yeah.
And it's definitely because 100% of what is then fan service.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
When the Duffer Brothers are sitting there thinking about, and then wouldn't it be cool if this little girl was riding a bike and flipped a car with her mind?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Whereas in season 2, it's like everybody liked when the little girl flipped the car with her mind. Let's have her flip 3 more.
Yep.
Let's follow, like, what lightning did we catch?
Yeah.
Let's go buy the same bottle, exactly like that.
It's very disingenuous, it can feel like sometimes,
At times, yes. I'm definitely not here shitting on the entire
No.
rest of them. Season 2 a little bit. Is that the one with the other girl who gets powers too? Sorry for spoilers.
No,
but
okay.
they kind of bring in
truly do not
another
care.
13 or some shit like that.
That is
And it's
the one.
like, okay. And they back the fuck off that in number 3. And I think they're going to do a number 4 maybe. Or is there a number 4 and they're going to do a number 5? I don't even know what the fuck they're up to anymore, but everything becomes about what, at the same time, what else are they supposed to do? It's building a universe,
Yeah, and it's not even to shit on them for doing that. It's just like, sometimes what makes stuff so special, like personally to me, that I enjoy, is just like that initial spark. It's like, whoa, this is becoming like a cultural phenomenon, and it came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So after a while, just for me personally, the novelty can wear off. Unless it's something I like a lot, which that also happens.
Because I feel that way 100% about Harry Potter, and I find a lot of that to be just in one story arc is usually nice. Because I think about either like Lord of the Rings too. Why doesn't Two Towers feel like it's copying what Fellowship did? It's like, because they're still on the same fucking quest.
Yeah.
They're still doing it. It's the other stories going all around that keep you kind of paced through it. But the same thing of like, motherfuckers here with the ring, and volcanoes over there. I got 3 books to tell in between there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
like that kind of links it. Same thing with Harry in school. I'm in school this whole time. I got to graduate, even though he never actually technically graduates.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I got to keep going from home to school, summer, winter, fall. Like, it keeps the clock going. Whereas this was just like, it happened to, I don't even know, like, how many weeks was Will gone for the first one? Like, what was the timeline? Did they have to wait another whole school year? No, now we're in school, or it's summer again. So like, where do we go with this universe? Kind of seemed like where they were like, I don't know.
Yeah, and
it's the 80s. We can go to
weird.
a mall.
Yeah, the mall. It's weird because they're all like, dude, they're aging so rapidly too. So it's like at a certain point, it's like, well, what do you do when like season 1, they're 11 years old, and season 2, it's like they're clearly like, I don't know, 16 or something. It's like it's a huge jump, and so, I don't know. It's not something I'm super interested in at the moment. But
one thing that I did like that ties us back to how this is, because I would have been that kid if we mentioned Will. And what do you do with 11-year-olds versus 16-year-olds? And one of those things that dropped off was the D&D element. You know, the entire thing of the Demigorgon all kind of came from there and blah, blah, blah. Whereas Will in the last one was like, come on, we got to play. And they're like, ugh, I got girl problems. I've got high school problems and like acne problems, whatever. Where he's still dressing up and he's like, no, I'm Will. Me as a kid, 100%, where I was still playing up until like the point where it's like, what's that 12-year-old doing kicking that tree over there? And it's like, he's battling a giant. Don't worry. You know, like we were just watching Role Models.
Yeah.
Augie, you know, that kind of even plays into this lair and stuff like that of what we're talking about. Like that was 100% me.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel that, man. And I don't know if we're going to like talk about D&D and stuff. I feel like that's what's so funny about it is it's like, you're kind of giving yourself as an adult permission to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's so fun because it's such it can be at least such a vulnerable activity. Because if you're playing with like a bunch of people that you don't know or don't know super well, it's kind of like, all right, we're going to agree right now to suspend this disbelief. And like, I'm going to pretend to be like a warrior and I'm going to talk in a Scottish accent and it's going to be really corny and it's going to be very like, frankly, like silly, you know, or can be at least. And so I don't know, man, like I've made really good friends really quickly doing that because it's just like you feel so close to them after that because you're just like, I was just very vulnerable in front of you. You know what I mean?
Sir, yes, I do. What a fucking good way to put that of like, I'm really just laying everything down because my accent's not great, but that's my character. That's how I feel about it. And that's how I want to do this. And, you know, if you have somebody who's laughing and doing it with you compared to like, you know, actually, if that accent was supposed to be there, you would have put a little extra thing on the dialogue.
Yeah.
So having a wet blanket like that, or just having somebody who comes in like, nerds,
Yeah, exactly.
also is just like, ugh. So, wow, what a good point that I had never really thought about. And maybe that's why I never did it. You know, I don't really have very many friends that I stay close with anymore that I can even think about. Maybe as a kid, I could have pulled a game together in terms of numbers, but I don't think there was maybe one. But, you know, now as an adult, I was talking about it of playing with my wife. I know she has to hear me talking silly voices all day. I unfortunately think I'm good at impressions.
Right.
And I know I'm not, but sometimes I want, like, out of 100, I would really hope that one, she goes, yeah, that wasn't bad.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Thank you. That's all I'm looking for as a quote-unquote, what the word did I say? Impressionist. Sorry, as an impressionist, 1 out of 100. I wanted a surprise shock. Yeah. Like, oh, shit, he didn't fuck it up again. Like, that's all I'm looking for.
What's funny, too, is, like, I feel like that's what's so fun about D&D is there really is something for everybody. So it's like, if all you gave a shit about was, like, I want to come here and I want to pretend to be a Scottish dwarf and I just want to speak in this accent, like, you could just do that. Like if you're a theater kid and you like to act like that, you could straight up just do that. If you're somebody who plays like really intense, like tactical board games, and when you play video games, you're really like a crunchy numbers kind of person. Like, how can I optimize this to be as efficient as possible? Like, you can do D&D like that. Like, it's such a versatile experience. You know what I mean?
Let's talk more about that, because on the other side of liking being silly and being stupid like that, in terms of like, I like also your use of the word silly.
Yeah.
Because that's usually a word that we pertain to children or just tomfoolery, ridiculousness, just straight up shenanigans that should not be happening. And maybe sometimes that's why it feels shameful of like, maybe I should be doing something else, but this brings me the joy. You know what I'm saying? Like I should be learning a language or something. I don't know, something quote unquote that we have deemed as a society as productive. But it's like, no, I am being productive because mental health wise, it's got to be fucking extraordinary. The amount of endorphins that get released of just like you said, just thinking I'm going to say something funny right now. And oh shit, they did think it was funny. And it was because of the accent and because of the silliness and all that fucking nonsense of like, that's productive. Yeah.
And it's like, what do you not want to have joy in your life too? You know what I mean? Like being a kid, man, it's like all you had to worry about was I'm going to go have as much fun as possible with the people that I like to spend the most time with. And so it's like, if you can even get a sliver of that in your adult life when like, you have to pay bills and worry about like actual things, it's like, why would you not want to, create that experience in that environment for yourself? And honestly, like, you know how it is, man. It's like the older you get, it's harder to see your friends like routinely. And so if you have a group of people that like, once a week, once a month even, you sit down on Saturday nights or whatever the situation is, you play D&D for 2 hours, it's like, you can count on that. You know what I mean? That's not something that everybody is afforded like in regular adult life,
I'm going to start that actually, because a few things just crossed my mind of, maybe I don't have that many friends, but like the wedding that we were just talking about, those people, my family would do that. That'd be fun as fuck. Because I know personally, too, and the other thing of people who are out there who might be of the persuasion of nerds, it's fantasy football in another kind of sense, like, what's the fucking difference? See, if you want to play the numbers and do stuff like that, you could totally do that. Like,
honestly, yeah, if you like fantasy football and you like that crunchy stuff, you'd probably love to play D&D because you can get really like precise and exact and efficient with how you're building a character to just... How can I do the most damage? How can I be the most, defensive-oriented character, whatever the situation might be? What kind of spells can I use to totally control the situation and just come out on top every time there's a battle? It's like you can definitely be like crunchy and aggressive about it too. Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Sure.
Again, that does interest me as that type of person of what exactly mean. So like 101 me really quick, almost like we did.
Yeah.
So I want to start. What do you need? What happens?
So D&D, like I would say at its core is a game of collaborative storytelling, right? So you have a dungeon master who's kind of controlling everything, kind of presenting a story, an encounter, an event, a world, kind of setting a scene for you. And then how your character is like the person that you play comes into that is like you show up at this world or this event or whatever that the dungeon master has laid out and you say, well, this is how I want to interact with it. You know what I mean? And then what you do is going to determine what happens next. So it's like if the dungeon master's like, all right, you start in a tavern and you see this dude over here and he's got a hood on and he looks pretty sketchy. And you're like, I want to go ask him what his deal is. And the dungeon master might be like, all right, well, let me think of a better way to phrase this. Like if the dungeon master sets up an event for you and so I'm having a hard time like thinking about it.
Yeah, because my biggest question then as you're kind of doing this is, are you reading from something?
Oh, yeah. So as a player, you're not reading from anything typically. Like you have a character sheet that you would kind of, as you're building your character, you have like all your stats and your abilities, you know, the items you have on your person. But as the dungeon master, you might have your own homemade world that you have like a whole document on, or you might be reading from like an adventure book, like a pre-published adventure book. But as a player, basically you're being presented this opportunity or this situation and you're deciding how you want to interact with that. So if you're searching for clues, for instance, somebody got murdered in a tavern and you're going to do an investigation, the dungeon master might say, hey, make a perception check. So you roll this dice and whatever number comes up, you add, you know, maybe a modifier to based on who your character is, what kind of skills they have, and that's going to determine how well you do. So if you roll a perception check and you get like a 2, you're not finding shit. And then, you know, your character's not going to be clued in on the mystery. You know what I mean?
But it all clicked at once for me. If you saw the surprise on my face, because at first I was like, God, this is confusing. Like I want to do it, but this is exactly why I haven't. But that then adds to it. So yeah, if I'm a crafty elf, let's say, like, all right, so even though I'm crafty and I rolled a 2, like I'm a crafty ass motherfucker, like almost in my world, if you will. Yeah. I'm Batman. Exactly. I could find the smallest clue ever, but I could still roll a 1 and make that shit a 10 because I'm motherfucking Batman.
Exactly. And
meanwhile, the Flash rolls a 1 and it's like, I didn't find shit.
Exactly. And so when you're building your character, like say you're building Batman, right? It's like, I say Batman's really good at investigating. He's probably really good at like athletics and stuff too. So your modifiers on your character sheet are going to be higher for skills like that. So like, you know, somebody who's very dexterous and perceptive, they're going to be able to dip and dodge and look for clues. But if you're somebody who just like, I don't know, you're a healer or a priest or something, you might know a shit ton of stuff about the history of the world or like how to use medicine properly. But you might not fucking know anything about anything else. And so, you know, it's kind of just the character that you make is going to determine how you interact with the world that's presented to you and then the story that gets told over session after session after session.
I am hooked now. Yeah. Because again, with my Batman analogy, it's just like, yeah, I could find clues, but don't ask me to punch Darkseid in the face. Because I'll just break my hand. For that, I want a Superman type character.
Exactly.
Or different things like that.
So you get the party composition right, you know, it can be really fun because you have everybody filling a specific role.
We need a healer. Exactly. You know, we can fucking kick a bunch of ass, but at the end of the day, like, oh man. Or we could kick a bunch of ass and save ourselves, but we don't have a navigator, shit like that. So once again, I can't get the DC comparisons out of my head.
No, but if it works for you, it works.
That's exactly how it worked for me. So once again, I'll kind of go back to this kind of understanding it and getting rules for anybody who wants. So it's like, basically, I'm going to also, through this podcast, train my mom how to do it because she will be part of my party because I was talking about it. Anyway, me, my wife, my mom, my dad, maybe. Do we need to buy anything? Like, is there a story? Like you said, there could be a story, but as a dungeon master, I could just come up with a story? You
could definitely come up with a story. If you're trying to become a dungeon master, like if you're the person that was going to run the game, there's definitely a bunch of books you could buy. My biggest advice though, man, they have a starter set available. It's like probably, I don't know, less than $50, and it has an abridged version of the rule book. So you kind of know just like everything that you need. It's got like a 10 to 15 page little adventure. It's got like a bunch of mini encounters in it. And then it's got some pre-generated characters that are just like ready to go. And then you can tweak those characters however your party would want to be like, oh, this sounds cool, but what if, you know, their background was like this instead? And, you know, they all have their own motivations for why they'd be getting to the story. That's a really good place to start, man, because then you don't have to, the downside to D&D, man, is like, it can be a real expensive hobby. I mean, you're looking at adventure books costing $50. If you're buying like the big 3, which are the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual, it's like $150. So it can be pretty off-putting if you're like, I don't even know if I'm going to like this. So definitely like the starter set's a good place to begin, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, as you're saying that, I'm the guy, if you can't tell by shit that I have around my house, I would quickly be the, all right, wife, please don't leave me, but I need this super awesome book because it's going to make me the best dungeon master ever. But that's for the campaign that we all play. So it's kind of like a gift for the like I can already hear me like that. Yeah. I can already hear me selling it, and I haven't even started playing.
Well, really, this is for you, so you should be thanking me.
Yes, I'm looking out for you and your time. You know,
like
have
fun or what?
Come on, that's exactly how I do it.
That's why it seems like it's so up your alley, man. Like I'm looking at you standing in front of like all these collectibles, and it's like, yeah, you definitely have like dungeon master energy. Yeah,
thank you. Oh man. man, I'm gonna put that somewhere. Maybe that'll be my new like handle somewhere. Dungeon Master Energy. That's the best I've ever heard.
And if you're a creative person, it's like it's so fun because you can have a whole idea for a world or even just like a character, man. Like maybe you really want to tell a story or explore like a theme or like express a part of yourself that you might not otherwise get to express. Like I read a joke somewhere on like maybe like the D&D subreddit or something. It's like every person who plays a rogue, which is like the stealthy thief kind of character in D&D, all those kids that play rogues were kids who never got in trouble growing up and never did anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, hey, here's a really fun way for me to express this like part of myself that doesn't involve me actually going out and stealing shit as an adult.
Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's funny. Sorry to kind of bring it up, but it reminded me of a second. Like, I bet some of the best people at fantasy football are the kids who got picked last. They're just like, but I know the numbers. Yeah. You know, they studied everything the best too.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's funny. Yeah, the goody two shoes just like, oh man, who stole all of my gold coins? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally my girlfriend when we play.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it works out.
So that's another then fun story. Let's just say as I move forward, I do become this dungeon master. Like, can I only play with one other? How do you happen to like? I'm sorry, I'm using you as a rule book of shit. I can probably
don't be, man. I'm happy to tell you the limited knowledge that I have. I would say like the best kind of party would be 3 to 4 is like a good starting one. So I think like you as the dungeon master, then you said your wife and your parents is like a pretty good place to start. I've been in parties of up to like 7 or 8 people and get a little bit like, oh man, like we're going to go around the table. Everybody's got to turn in combat. Like this shit's taking a long time. So I think 3 or 4 people is nice. It's like optimal. You can get like the synergy and the chemistry going, but it doesn't become like a slog. You know what I mean? So and it doesn't feel so overwhelming having to like keep up with all these different people's stats and numbers and stuff. So I would say that's a good place to start for sure.
And then just something else. So let's just have an unfortunate situation that's kind of actually happening right now. If the house that my parents live in has some sickness, they're quarantined. So long story short, if my wife and I were out for it, could we join another party for a week? Do my stats carry over to your world? Like you'd mentioned rules, rule books, mastering. So like, is it technically all in the same multiverse, if you will? Like,
that would be up to you, man. I mean, you could kind of do it like every world is different. Like every dungeon master is going to have their own set of worlds or whatever. But if you wanted to go play like a session with somebody, typically what people do is they'll do like one-shot campaigns. So it's like literally one adventure where it's like, hey, you got hired to go in and steal this ruby from this billionaire's castle, or this go get this artifact from this wizard's tower. And then it's a self-contained thing. So it's like, if you know, hey, I'm only going to be able to hang out this one time, you just get a pre-done adventure. It's just like ready to go, in and out, couple hours, and you have a good time. You know what I mean? So you can make a new character for that. You can just take the character that you have already made and bring it over and say that they're off doing something else. It's really however you want to create it, man. That's the best part is like, there's no like hard rules for how any of the universes work. You know, like all the books have these pre-designed worlds, like different realms and stuff, but it's really just for inspiration. Like however you wanted to spin it would be the best way to do it, you know?
Yeah, because sorry to just keep piling on the DC likenesses, because once it's just how I figured this all out. And one of my favorite things is that introduced me to the multiverse. Yeah. Specifically, almost when it was done in comics, even though it was way before I was born. Like I think it was in one of the cartoons. It's called The Flash of Two Worlds. Mm-hmm. And it's something I actually want to get tattooed. Of like this guy is at the front. He's like, Flash, help me. And on both sides are the 2 Flashes that the DC continuities had set up until that point. And that's the first time they meet. And anybody ever went like, oh,
holy shit.
There's 2 of them. Mm-hmm. Like, holy shit. So ever since like that kind of idea, maybe it was the Justice League episode where it was Crisis on 2 Earths. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I like that idea of traveling around and just knowing like, oh, we have a second. What did you call the stealthy person? A rogue?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through that. All right, I could be a rogue. I could be a...
Yeah, there's plenty of different characters.
A wizard?
Man. Yep, rogue, wizard, sorcerer. The way that I look at it is like, so there's melee classes, there's magic classes, and there's classes that are like hybrids. So you got, for your melee classes, you got like your barbarian, you know what I mean? Just, hey, I'm just here to like fucking hit things with a big club.
Superman, Shazam.
I'm very primal, very like, you know, tribe oriented. You have, like your monks and stuff who are going to be more like dexterous and hand to hand. You have your rangers who are going to be more about like having a bow and arrow.
I was
and
literally going to say Green Arrow.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
so funny.
And tracking stuff. Rogues are, like I said, more dexterous. For casters, they kind of, you have different sets of magic. So wizards are like, think of them as people who study to learn about magic. You go into the magic institution or university or whatever.
More like a maester from Game of Thrones, if you fuck with that almost.
Surprisingly, I don't, man. Yeah, it's so funny because it's right up my alley, but again, just like never got into it. But I trust your analogy. You know what I mean? So people like that would go to and they would learn, whereas like sorcerers, you were born with that innate magical ability.
Oh, I like that shit.
And so
okay,
like there are different rules for those kind of characters. Like some sorcerers have this thing where every time you cast a spell, you take a 20-sided die, you roll it on a table. And if you roll a 1, it's called a wild magic surge, and some bad shit happens. It's like, hey, maybe your spell backfires. Because it's like when you have it innately, you don't know how to control it necessarily. And then, warlocks are characters that they make a deal with like some kind of, like a patron, maybe some kind of like dark spirit or something like that. And so they have magic, but it's a very different kind of role-playing experience.
Comes at a toll almost.
Exactly. And so, very similar.
Rumpelstiltskin almost. Yeah, that's what that shit reminds me of.
Maybe very similar spell lists, but like very different ways that you're going to bring that character into the world with different motivations. And then, there are a lot of classes, and these are the ones I tend to play, are kind of in the middle. So it's like you have a paladin who might be a warrior who loves to hit shit with a sword and shield, but he's got some like ability to use some magic and, smite the undead, or a bard, which is like, you're giving your party bardic inspiration, more like a support class. And you can cast spells. You can also fight with weapons. And it's just a matter of like, hey, what kind of stuff do you like to do? What kind of characters do you like? And when I get people who never played before, I literally always go to Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, well, who in Lord of the Rings did you like the best? Like, what character seems the most fun for you? Oh, you liked Legolas? Okay, you're going to play an elf probably, and you might want to use a bow and arrow. You know what I mean? And then it's just go from there. Yeah.
So you also fuck with Lord of the Rings a lot.
I love Lord of the Rings, yeah.
I'm sorry. I like the movies a lot.
Yeah.
I couldn't get into the books as much. And it's funny because we have coworkers, and you know who I'm talking about, and they talk about it with such vigor and such enjoyment. And I want to get back into it, and I tried to crack Fellowship again, and I'm just like,
oh, they're dense for sure.
Bored.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we were gonna meet somebody with a ring. Like, where's the ring, guys? Like, like that first half of the book.
It
for
can drag,
me personally,
man, for sure.
it did take a while, so I'm gonna try once again.
The movies are so good, man, that like a lot of times you'll hear people, the movies aren't as good as the book, and maybe that's not true. Those movies are amazing, so there's definitely no shame in that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have shame in saying it because I usually am the asshole who's like, well, because Game of Thrones, I will say, there's especially towards the end of where they went.
Oh yeah.
You've probably heard the scuttlebutt about everything. Yeah, it's one of those things where the book really does do more justice. Whereas, I don't know, it took forever to get to the ring.
Yeah.
That's neither here or there. But, like, I was thinking about that. If you asked me, like, who's your favorite in The Lord of the Rings? I'm like, I don't know any of their fucking names, to be honest. Like, they all kind of sound the same. I like Sean Bean. I feel like I would be that Sean Bean where, like, you could be tempted, but at the end of the day, you're going to die doing the right thing.
Yeah, and so, like,
I like that kind of thing.
Maybe you bring in, like, a morally ambiguous character where it's like, hey, you like that dude because he swung a sword and you thought he looked cool, but maybe he's got a weird backstory that makes him act a certain type of way. Then you would bring that information, if you were a player character, you would bring that information to your dungeon master, and your dungeon master would be like, how can I then tempt this character with, like, these weird kind of morally gray opportunities that are going to allow for good stories to take place. You know what I mean? If you're a good dungeon master, I think that's the goal anyway. Because again, it's collaborative storytelling at its core, I think.
To weirdly side tail, have you ever played, you said video games, have you ever done a Telltale game? Is what I think they're called.
No.
I look up a lot of shit on YouTube. So what it is, it kind of sounds almost like that, where it's based off, it's an electronic version of what you're almost saying of it, or even those old school books of like Decided Destiny, like, do you take it? Go to page 6.
Choose Your Own Adventure kind of books.
That's what I meant. Yes, thank you. But like they did it for Batman, of course. Surprise, surprise! I'm bringing up Batman again. But it's like Harvey Dent wants to be your friend, but he's shady. Hit X and take his friendship, or hit B, and then it learns about you in that way of like, this guy would be a shady ass Batman. Let's keep presenting him with shady ass shit until all of a sudden, almost to bring up Christian Bale again, or really Harvey Dent says it, Aaron Eckhart, of like, you either live long enough to see yourself become the villain, or you die a hero.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm fucking digging this,
You know
dude.
what's
I
funny?
might really want to do this.
You know
dude.
what's
I
funny?
might really want to do this.
I think you would like it, man. And it's funny because like that game, and probably honestly, like a lot of video games, especially like RPGs and stuff like that, they're based on the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons, man. Like, especially, and that shit's been around since the 70s. You know what I mean? So any game, if you've ever played like Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, like any of these games, that have swords and magic or are turn based, it's like almost certainly directly coming from what Dungeons and Dragons laid the foundation for. Yeah.
When I started this section, I kind of started with Stranger Things because I was like, well, that's the only way people know about it anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
And I said that as a joke, but I do also believe like it's not true in the fact of like that's a long ass time where there's probably people who have been playing campaigns for who knows. There's probably friends who reminds me if you've ever read or seen the movie Ready Player One.
No.
The main guy in that who leaves the Willy Wonka, if you will, sort of find my Easter egg bullshit. It's only usually in the book called Anorak, the Almighty. Even though his real name is James Halliday, but like Anorak, that was his D&D character, and that was who he personified himself in this virtual world that he built and stuff. But I always found that interesting. Like he only called this one girl Kira. It wasn't even her fucking name. Like, but in his mind, like that's all you almost are to me. Like you're Kira and I'm Anorak, and like I like that world so much better. There's probably real life people like that who have been playing long that it's like, yes, I know that James is in front of me, but like really all I see is, I don't know, you're like, Artonius is sitting in front of me, like, how are you, sir?
Well, that's what I mean,
that,
man.
and
like I had
building
that. I had those, this one group I played with for probably like 3 years. And we played pretty much every week. Like we took some longer breaks, but when we were on weekly. And I felt like I got to know them pretty well as people and that we became comfortable with one another. But I didn't know very much about like their personal lives. You know what I mean? But I could tell you exactly how they would respond to a situation as this character. And it's so funny because it sounds, if you're not like doing it, it sounds almost fake, but it's like, there are some real emotional beats that you can have straight up just playing in a pretend game. It's like, I've gotten chills from revelations. I've gotten like worked up. I've been like jaw on the floor, like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. And it's all bullshit. It's all fantasy, but it's so fun. And like, I think that goes to, I don't know, like what we started on with that. It's like, playing and having that imagination is very important as an adult too. So you better get that in your life somehow, man, I
don't think it's become any less fun. Yes, we've just convinced ourselves it's less important.
Exactly, but it's not.
Yeah, that's funny too, because I can also see the guy like rolling a 10 and me just getting up like, I need to step the fuck out right now. This guy, but I think I also wanted to bring up too, it is a dodecahedron.
Oh, I couldn't tell. It's a 20-sided die. What that word would be, no fucking clue.
I think so, like breaking it down in my head, do.
2.
Decade.
Yep. 20.
Hedron is just fuck. I don't know. That's what I feel like you add on the end of every single object or shape, like a hexagon, hedron.
Yeah. I think that sounds right.
It sounds right.
And that's the main die you would use. So like most of the time, if you're doing like what we call like a skill check, like, oh, I'm going to see if I can intimidate this guy, or hey, I'm going to see if I can fucking steal this thing right now. You're rolling the 20-sided die and you're adding like your modifier based on what the skill is, or if you're rolling to attack. And then there are other die that are pretty much determined by like what kind of weapons you're using. So like a dagger is going to do way different kind of damage than like a battle axe. So for a battle axe, you might roll like a 12-sided die, whereas a dagger, you might roll like a 4-sided die. You know what I mean? But mostly it's that dodecahedron. Thank you for teaching me that word. I
think that sounds right. I don't know if that is, though. Like, there's got to be somebody on the internet who's going to be like, no.
Let us know in the comments if we're wrong.
You're so smart. Ending this so perfectly. Thank you.
Of course.
Actually, I did have one more. Sorry.
Sure,
because the one thing that I always feel comes up in this is like, what's the longest campaign have you ever done? Like, I think we brought it up. They can go on, like, can they go on forever?
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, the longest one that I was in lasted about 3 years. But there are people that play, they might play every weekend for a couple of years and take a long break and go once a month. But I think when you just get that same group of people together, it doesn't even necessarily have to be an ongoing story.
Thank you. That's what I was kind of more asking. Can you quote unquote have a game per week? Or is this one of those things of like, we're in this for the long haul? It
can be either, man. It's dependent on what you like. Like for me, I just know myself and I try to be realistic. Like when I'm the dungeon master, I always get these great ideas of like, oh, I'm going to build this world and the characters that my friends are making are so cool and here's how I'm going to hook them. And then it's like, after 3 or 4 weeks of that, I'm like, oh, I'm out of ideas and I'm burnt out. So like what I find works for me, man, is going back to what we said earlier. I buy a bunch of those like pre-made adventure books. I pick up a couple adventures that we can play, and I just like do one shots over and over and over, because then I don't get burnt out on them. It's way less prep on my end. I don't have to sit and type up so much about a world that it feels like homework or something. And it just allows me to kind of like go at the pace that works for me. You know what I mean? So truly, man, like there's a way to make it work for you in any way you want. If you wanted to be like, yo, fuck this, I don't want sword and sorcery, I want to have like machine guns, whatever, you could probably figure that out. Like there's a way to do it. Like if you wanted to play a D&D game where you were literally like superheroes, I'm sure that somebody already has made rules for that. You could just find it on the internet.
I was thinking that, like, at this point, you would think after, we were talking the 70s, so what is that, 50 years, give or take, that somebody at DC, that somebody at Marvel, or somebody somewhere would be like, yeah, you could, like, have all these things happen at the Sanctum Sanctorum or at, you know, the Daily Planner or some shit like that. Like, why not? And if not, one thing, you know, and I say this word, I said it as a joke, but I say it with love of like, there's got to be nerds on the internet. Like you said, like, oh, you want to play D&D Superman? Boom.
Yeah.
Here you go.
What did you say earlier? Like you said the barbarian, you know what I mean? That'd be like Superman. So it's like, maybe you just take that class and you say, okay, instead of using a battle axe or whatever, he's just going to fucking hit with his fist, and you just roll the same dice that asks you, but you just flavor it differently, like reskinning it all. You know what I mean?
I do.
World's your oyster, man.
I see just a lot of time going into like, because now that you said it, that's exactly what I could do. It's just like, you know, with a dagger or an axe, like, all right, you can either throw a super punch or just use a little bit of freeze breath.
Exactly. Yep. You got it, man. I can see the gears turning in your head right now, and it makes me feel so excited for you.
I'm excited, and I thank you so much, man. Thank you. With that, though, we are going to wrap up. It has been very long, so I am going to end the way that I always do. And just because I end this way doesn't mean I don't mean it. You know, it's not just a way to wrap things up or a shtick to say to the people. Like, time is very short. We were talking about even in this podcast how time is weird. There's not a lot of it, and yet you just spent hours here with me. Like, that's awesome, dude. Thank you very much. And especially after a day at work and shit, too, you know?
Yeah.
It was a lot of time. You were here for quite some of it. Like, thank you. Thank you so much for choosing to do it. You know, you were really cool reaching out and being like, do you want to talk about stuff? What could we talk about? And then you hit me with this idea that I just had so much fun talking about. That's different for the show, and that's why I like switching up people and really, really would love to see you kind of come back and co-host.
I would love to come back, man. I had a great time, and I would definitely love to do this again.
Perfect. And the one thing, you know, to maybe give a little Susan for anybody who enjoyed this as well, we both know, we've talked about other co-host here, Drew. Like, I've done threesomes before, man, you know, and they've proven to be fun.
He said that to me this morning, man. Is that maybe we could both go on? I was like, yo, say less. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we'll definitely have to get that scheduled for the books. But in the meantime, dude, like, again, sorry to beat the dead horse. Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank everybody on the other side listening this whole time. I think this is a great episode. Leave your comments down below, especially for that last section. Are you a rogue? Are you a barbarian? Are you a wizard, a caster? Like, what are you? Leave it in the section down below. The comments, we talked about the walls, the tweets, all those fun things would be great. But at the end of the day, if you can't do any of that, word of mouth would be the best, you know? Because if you know a friend who likes Buds, Bros, or Superheroes, well, I got a fucking show for them. My name has been Nick James. I've been hanging out with the great and wonderful
James Jess Colca.
Buds, Bros, and Superheroes are out of here.